Hello, dear friends and colleagues. This presentation is an introduction in which I will show most of what I will discuss at the 7th Dubai International Conference on Social Sciences to be held next week in Dubai, the 21st and then 22nd of February. And the topic that I'm going to present is team therapy, which is a form of therapy created by Dr. David Burns. And my interest in the subject started after I did much research in Israel about social entrepreneurs and schools that do great. And in one of those schools, I fell so much in love with it, the Kedma school, that a decade ago, I decided to move from the role of researcher to the role of being counselor in the school. So they said, fine. I went to study school counseling. I really wanted to get more strength in my counseling skills. So after studying a master's in counseling, I went to the Psagot Institute in Israel, where I discovered team CBT or team therapy through Dr. Maor Katz, who's a student of Dr. David Burns, the founder of team therapy, and the author of Feeling Good and the new bestseller, Feeling Great, books that are really recommended whether you are a therapist or general public that wants to work a bit on your well-being. Really very powerful tool. And in my academic career, I just returned from, well, a year ago because of the pandemic. I had an early return to Israel after 3 years in Mexico, where I continued to train directly with David Burns and other masters such as Daniel Minty, who is my mentor till this day, Maor Katz, Jill Levitt, Angela Crum, Heather Clegg, Rhonda Borowski, Matt May I forgot to put on the list. The good thing about team therapy is that it has international groups meeting online to further increase the level of our treatment. In Mexico, together with the supervision of Daniel Minty, I introduced two team, which is now led by Victoria Chicurel. And me and Daniel are involved as sort of like lay supervisors externally, and Victoria actually is doing things with Daniel with underprivileged families in the United States with low intensity CBT. But okay, so what is TEAM? David Burns discovered cognitive behavioral therapy when he was in Philadelphia under Aaron Beck. And with Beck blessings, he popularized cognitive behavioral therapy through the book Feeling Good, which was a great contribution to self-help. But when he returned to Stanford and returned to California, he was very busy in trying to figure out what is it that is missing, especially for those patients or clients that don't seem to be able to change even when David offers the best techniques. So TEAM is based on the idea that every session we have testing. And the testing is about depression, anxiety, moods, relationship questions, positive feelings about life, and also there are always questions about suicidality, because we realize that if we don't ask, sometimes we may miss that danger. And we test the person before and after, which is a lot of accountability. We also measure at the end of the session how empathic we were, how helpful we were in the session. And we try to be great with empathy, because lots of research has shown that therapists and counselors don't really know what was going on in the session. We imagine that we have much more empathy than what we really have in real life. So we work a lot in improving our empathy skills until the patient or client gives us a perfect score. In agenda setting, we try to melt away the patient's resistance, especially by totally understanding the world from the patient's point of view from the point of view of the addiction or the anger or the depression or the anxiety. And actually, we go very paradoxically asking them why not to stay with the depression, anxiety, or habit, or whatever it is, because only when the patient starts to fight for change, even though we totally agree that maybe it's a good idea to stay with the current habit or addiction or problem, then change is possible. And then only after we created a very, very strong agenda, then we believe it is possible to actually create very strong change. We work a lot on empathy, and we emphasize the secrets of effective communication. I think the most difficult one is disarm. The rule is that whenever a person attacks us, we try to find something right about the attack. And paradoxically, you will see when you let your ego relax a bit and you find something truth in the attack, that same moment, the person doesn't believe the attack anymore. We do a lot of emphasis on thought and feeling empathy. We paraphrase and we try to see, did we understand that you said that, you thought that? And we also try to understand the feeling that the patient or client has at the same moment. It is very important for us in that sense. We are a bit intersubjective, that we use I feel statements. Wow, I feel very sad to listen that your uncle decided to push you away from the family business or something like that. It's a real human connection. In inquiry, we use the usual open-ended questions with gentle probing to understand more the patient's point of view. And affirmations, which we used to call stroking, but I think it has maybe sexual connotations, so we are using affirmations. What is it wonderful that we find about the patient, his life and his situation, and the way that he handles the situation? I really admire you that you, even though you are so depressed and you feel that there's nothing going for you, you still show up on time to these meetings because you are hoping that it would bring a change in your life. And again, on agenda setting, after the empathy is perfect and after we invite the patient to change, and usually we start with a very specific moment that shows whatever the problem is, we actually argue with the patient about all the good reasons not to change. Actually, David is lately using a triple column, which goes, let's say somebody eats too much. And what is fun about eating a lot? What's good about it? That's column one. Column number two, what does it show that is so wonderful about you? And it could be your depression, anxiety, your anger. And the third, what are the disadvantages of starting to do a diet, exercise more, etc., etc. And only after you have lots of reasons not to change, then many times we use the pivot question and ask, why on earth would you want me to take away this habit from you? It seems to be working for you. And only after the patient gives us all the good reasons to change, and we even ask in numbers, how much are you for the change? How much are you for the status quo, to keeping it as it is? Then we go ahead and offer the many, many methods and techniques that we have. I think that team therapy has tremendous implications for therapy, counseling work, management, relationships, because there isn't enough empathy in the world, and if we really would work hard in our capacity to really understand the other person's point of view, which is sometimes something that in world politics in many, many countries we see it's not happening, going to the demonization of the other, etc. And in counseling work, it brings you so much closer to the client when you use the 5 secrets of effective communication and the testing, which you get real scores, and the scores are not so great with the patient or client at the beginning. And you use agenda setting, which is really, many times when you use team therapy, it's the first time that the patient or client feels that she or he is respected, that somebody totally understands. As a school counselor, yeah, Mikey, I totally understand that. Whenever somebody says something about your family, you feel that you want to punch them and get violent because you are very inclined to justice, and you're just not going to take it that somebody will hurt your honor so much. And then when he's surprised that this bald guy is telling him that there's something fine about his attitude, then he starts giving me all the reasons. For example, oh, but you guys may kick me out of school, and say, yeah, that's a possibility, but I understand that maybe this is not the right time to you to think about changes in the way that you deal with this issue. And then he starts arguing with me about the possibility or the need to change, actually. So for more training materials, information, then you can contact me at my website. You can, of course, go to Dr. David Byrne's website, which has so many things. Great podcasts, great articles. There's a free chapter there on habits and addictions and decision making. It's just wonderful. You can go to the Feeling Good Institute. There's great training at the Feeling Good Institute in California and online for therapists all over the world. I also recommend very much my mentor, Daniel Minty, who's a great team master and trainer, and he's the author of Reclaiming Life After Trauma, which is a wonderful book that has a lot of the team approach in it, and also mindfulness and some other additions that Daniel finds useful with his patients, with his extensive experience. I want to finish with a thought that Buddha and Epictetus would agree, that we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them, something that David repeats over and over. And actually, that is something that already at the CBT world, when he was with Beck, he started trying out, and he was really amazed that indeed CBT works in changing their interpretations. And team therapy is an expansion of CBT into something which I think is integrative, humanistic, that gives you lots of tools to respect the autonomy of the patient or client or worker in your workplace to make a change on his life, or decide that for the time being, whatever he or she is doing is really fine and wonderful. So looking forward to see you in Dubai, and I'll be very happy to stay in touch. And here you can see my contact details if you are interested. Thank you very much.